All right. So with that, I am going to transition to an absolute bombshell story that a lot of people have been talking about. Seymour Hersh, one of the most decorated journalists of the modern age. Seymour Hersh. So, this is what really catapulted him into prominence. The My Lai massacre. This was a massive expose way back in the day, as you can see in 1969. It was war crimes back in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War. He is, from what I know, ardently anti-war. Great journalist, really speaks truth to power, and has an insane track record. He's also the one that broke the story that kind of everyone already knew at the time, that the US was intimately involved with the bombing of, why am I, of course I'm blanking on the name of Russia's pipeline. Am I blanking? Nord Stream.
No,
Bombing of
I was
Nord
literally
Stream
just about to say
pipeline.
it.
You know, the single, if I'm not mistaken, single largest uh, emission of methane gas in all of recorded human history. And it was perpetrated either by the US directly or with intimate help from the US, which is hilarious because we immediately came out afterwards and said, oh, you know, the thing that makes Russia a ton of money, their own pipeline, yeah, we think they bombed it, which was just so unbelievably insane. It's such an insult to people's intelligence, even though some people, or a lot of people, are just absolutely. Some are dumb, and some are just like smart people who are super immune to skepticism of their own government, and they really live in this bubble where they think that the government really is this benevolent organization that is always acting in good faith and has, you know, the global health, like the health of the globe and countries on their mind, when in reality anyone who actually knows anything about US foreign policy knows that we are like the biggest meddler in foreign affairs in the entire world, between cooing people, putting our thumb on the scale of elections, um, you know, invading, coming in, trying to steal natural resources. And so he reported on that, here it is, the Nord Stream pipeline. Looks like he did a report on the killing of Osama. Let's see what my the Syria, I think this was Duma. Was this the Duma chemical attacks? Sarin attack at Ghouta. Ah. I'm not gonna comment on this. All I know is, yeah, this was the OPCW cover up that Aaron Mate and Jimmy Dore commented on. Essentially, Aaron went to Syria and was basically reporting on this, that there was a massive cover up that the OPCW was involved in, where there was an initial report, if I'm not mistaken, and then there was a doctored report, and it was just very Oh, there he is. I see him in Discord now. Looking all fancy and shit. Let me... There we go.
Bro, I was wearing a bandana and
I,
looked like a
for
homeless
some
person
reason,
earlier.
can't hear you. Let me see. Let me check my settings. Output device, voice meter, input. Yeah. There we go. Say something.
What's up?
There we go. Now I can hear you. All right. Let me make sure that you're coming through on the stream. There we go. I got it zoomed in enough. Cool. So I can basically only see you now. This should be voice meter input. All right, say one more thing. Testing.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Cool. All right, it works. So I was just kind of given the background on Seymour Hersh. He's an insanely decorated reporter. He's been doing this for a long ass time.
And he talks about everything too. He doesn't really hold back.
Yeah. He's very much not partisan or like political in that way. He will criticize whoever. He's been doing this, like I said, since the 60s when he broke the whole My Lai massacre story in Vietnam. Dude is, as far as I can tell, I mean, I'm sure everyone's been wrong in their career, but, you know, I haven't seen any giant stories that he's gotten wrong. And so, you know, you got very large, impactful stories that deal with a myriad of topics. So the latest one that everyone has recently been talking about in light of recent events is this one that he wrote July 27th called Leaving Las Vegas, Inside the Last Tortured Days of the Biden Campaign. I found a text that looks to be like the entire transcript of this article on a different website because I have yet to subscribe to Seymour on Substack, but honestly, if I continue to use his articles, I will definitely subscribe, and I encourage anyone else who wants some good reporting from a very trustworthy, dedicated reporter, go subscribe to his Substack. Obviously, picture of Biden. This is one of the better pictures of Biden that's ever been posted. He's not looking like he forgot where he was in this. He just looks like a frustrated, grumpy old man. But essentially, I'm not going to go through the entire article and read the whole thing. It's not super duper long, but it's also not, you know, super brief. I'm going to kind of give the cliff notes on it. So, everyone has already known, you know, me and DJ have talked about this countless times. Anyone all the way back since 2019 has known Biden is an old man with a failing brain. Anyone that isn't a partisan hack essentially lying to themselves could see that, you know, and they would gaslight everyone, tell you that, oh, it's just his stutter. You know, you're being ageist, just whatever they pulled out of their ass at any given moment you're the asshole for pointing out that
Things that they started saying about Trump recently, actually, which is kind of funny.
Yes, yeah, it's ironic. But, you know, God forbid people like me, DJ, a lot of people we know who, you know, it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, they all kind of had the same thing of, if you're supposedly the leader of the free world, we would like to know that you are not cognitively losing it to the point of, you know, potential dementia or Parkinson's or even both. And anyone who's kind of been following the evolution of Joe Biden and his campaign knows that I think it was back in the 90s, this guy had, I believe, 2 different brain aneurysms. And I believe had to even go get surgery to correct them. And back in 2019 on the campaign trail, when people were, I guess, allowed in the corporate media's eyes to criticize him for his age, people were pointing out, there were articles about how he's had 2 brain aneurysms and how this can lead to what's called vascular dementia. It greatly increases the chances of you getting cognitive issues. I mean, it just kind of makes sense. You had a brain aneurysm, it's probably going to lead to some problems. And that was all the way back in the 90s. And it seemed like, he had recovered pretty well, but the issue wasn't necessarily in the immediate term. It was, when you start to get older, you might see a rapid decline compared to the average person. Clearly, that's what we were seeing.
One was even back in 88.
88, wow. Yeah, so, I mean, the guy's never been a freaking savant, but he's at least been able to, hold a conversation and keep trains of thought until then. Until up in, 2018, 2019, when you really started to see the...
He's cognizant enough to be a con man for a little bit.
Exactly. It didn't stop
Then once
him
the internet
from...
came out, though, everyone was like, wait a minute, you're lying.
When you have a clear view of... how corrupt and shitty this person is just in general, but hey man, we can go back and see your debate with what's his name, Paul Ryan, where even back then, compared to even 2019, let alone now, but compared to 2019, you could see, wow, this dude's lost more than just a step. This dude's fallen down the whole flight of stairs. And then if you go back to the Paul Ryan interview now, you're like, holy shit, this is a completely different person. So anyone who's just known and followed politics and what Joe Biden was like, even when he was just vice president, you're like, yeah, this dude is definitely old. And not more so that's one of the things that they used to do a lot is, it's just his age. And his age was just kind of a stand-in for what we all knew. You can be whatever he is, 79, 80 years old, and still be completely with it. I'd prefer to not have octogenarians as my president, but as long as they have a functioning brain and can actually make good decisions, then the age is not the problem. It's the cognitive function. And some people, when they hit 60, they start having cognitive decline. Some people, they're 105 years old, and you can still have a conversation with them, and they might be slicker with their words than even you are, and you can't keep up with them, with their wisdom and, how smart they are. It's a person-by-person basis. Clearly, Biden was not hit with the lucky stick on terms of his cognitive decline. So
it has been pretty rapid. I mean, during the Obama administration, I don't recall anything any red flags or anything real. You know what I mean? Comparative to now.
Yeah, there were Biden gaffes, but it's not it wasn't I forgot where I am and went the wrong way off the stage. It was more just him being
uttering or switching words or just being a jackass.
Yeah, saying something where you're Obama's like, dude, you can't say that out loud, but it wasn't literally
I mean, that was a running thing though. That was a running thing though. Obama said it multiple times. He was like, never underestimate Joe's ability to fuck something up.
Something
something along those lines. It's a hilarious line, but it's just bro, how has he made it this far? Being behind the crime bill and all this stuff. But then again, we have Kamala Harris. So I mean, they were kind of two peas in a pod in that sense.
Yes, he kind of failed upwards. If you run for president enough times, even if the first time you run, you get basically
I
effectively
swear
kicked
it's
out for
because Parks and Rec.
plagiarizing.
Leslie Knope was like a crazy like Joe Biden fan and shit, and like I swear that accounted for probably like 50,000, 100,000 votes right there. Like I think NBC needs to be put on trial, not Russia. They were truly tampering with it's BS, man.
Yeah, I mean, Google even, like, it's been shown, can easily, and they do tamper with the election in one way or another. So
Well,
yeah, it's
every
just funny that.
every entity that's worth more than $5 million, which actually is a good segue back to the Seymour Hersh shit. Um, so how you saying in the article, which it cut off because I don't have the subscription, so I couldn't read the full thing. But the portion that I could read, it was saying whether, or when you were saying whether the funds were reported or not, and he didn't ask when he was talking about the bag full of money getting passed through, and he's like, "What the hell?" Oh, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, there's the full transcript.
But yeah. So when you were saying yeah, the bag of money got like tossed in, and he didn't ask like if it was properly reported or not.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things, like the biggest crack that Kamala got in one of her speeches, like right after she announced that she was going to be running instead of Joe. She's like, yeah, no, Trump's. She was like just talking crap about Trump taking money from like these oil guys, and I think she mentioned Musk. I don't remember if she mentioned my name or not, but she's just going in and like that was like one of her staple things. It's like you accept money from all these other PACs, but it's done in the dark and you hide it because it's from way worse people that you're against, but you're still going to
Mm-hmm.
be passing bills for it. Like it, what you're doing is way shadier, and they're all announcing it and they're being super upfront about it, like way more upfront than most PACs. It's just wild that was like the biggest crack that she got out of everyone in the audience, besides saying that she's going to pass abortion bills and all that crap. But no, dude, it's just the hypocrisy is just ridiculous. It's laughable and it's nonstop, like with everything.
Yeah, I think that's the one of the biggest nails in the coffin is, like, besides the dyed in the wool, you know, shit libs, I would say. Most people who are even like moderately on the left, they're just like, yeah, I can't deal with the constant hypocrisy. Party of democracy is on the ballot, but we're also going to cancel all the primaries, so you have to have your nominee be Joe Biden, and then when we can't cover for him, which also ties back into the article, when we can't cover for him anymore and it's clear this dude might even fucking die before the election, no, we're not going to have a real open convention where people really get to pick the new nominee. We're just going to basically coronate Kamala Harris. But democracy, it's just, yeah, when the hypocrisy is nonstop, like you said, and just so out in the open, there's only so much that the majority of people who aren't just complete partisan hacks can handle before they're like, dude, fuck this party sucks. But it's funny because it says this is the breaking news, I guess you'd call it, reporting that Seymour is detailing here on what actually broke the camel's back when it comes to Kamala forcing, and basically Kamala and Obama forcing Joe Biden to step down. So it says, and this is very recent, on Monday, July 15th, Biden took off on Air Force One on a campaign trip to Nevada, a toss-up state that Biden won in 2020 by a little more than 30,000 votes. On Tuesday, he gave the keynote address to 5,000 members of the NAACP at its annual convention. The next day, the president, apparently stricken while campaigning with a yet-to-be-revealed illness, broke from his schedule and made a police escort race to Air Force One after initially telling police that they were heading to the nearest emergency room. A series of blog posts, local police reports, internet messages, and reports in the Daily Mail disclose further details of Biden's trip to Las Vegas and his abrupt return home to Delaware. I went over these reports this week with a senior official in Washington who helped me fashion an account of a White House in complete disarray, culminating in the president's withdrawal from the race. At that point, according to Emily Gooden, a Daily Mail reporter who was in the traveling press pool, because he has a group of reporters that basically follow him around and like generate articles for him. The president was deathly pale, and Air Force One flew at maximum speed to Delaware, where the president has a weekend retreat at Rehoboth Beach. The press pool was told that Biden had COVID. So our general
Oh,
instincts,
yeah.
where we were talking about, is it really COVID or is that just a convenient excuse for him to be hidden from the public? Oh, he can't be around anyone. COVID, it's deadly. It's super contagious, which obviously no one believes anymore. We thought if it actually is COVID, it might actually be a danger to this guy considering he's like super frail. But I don't know, you and I both had this sneaking suspicion of, wow, that was pretty abrupt and weird. Is it really COVID or is this just a
Right after the
convenient
Trump
ploy?
thing too.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Like they're trying to get rid of him. They're trying to get some. I mean, from the conspiracy theory mindset, they're trying to get rid of Biden. They're trying to get rid of Trump, and they're trying to put someone else that everyone's already suspected of being a puppet or
Oh
part of
yeah,
the
it's clear
puppet
that she
group,
would be
at
just
least.
a puppet for, big tech, or the military industrial complex. Kamala's liable to get us into more wars than Biden
Oh yeah,
because she's just
absolutely.
like
For the
chomping at the
worst
bit.
reasons too.
Yeah, I literally just saw a meme that was posted and it was from Tropic Thunder and it was all of them in the Black Hawk, um, or whatever the Vietnam, the Huey. And it
Mm.
was all of them and they're all like smiling and it's Ben Stiller and whatever. And it's me and the boys on the way to war because Taylor Swift and, oh fuck, who else? Beyonce told ignorant white women to vote for Kamala. It's like it's so glib, but it's so true. It's like, oh my god, democracy's on the ballot. We need to vote for Kamala Harris, strong black woman, and then immediately we're in three new wars. The draft is reinstated. Oh, I didn't think she'd send my boyfriend, and here we are. But so it says they said he had contracted COVID infection and would be in isolation. He was said to have upper respiratory systems, a runny nose, a cough, and was fatigued. That was the last straw for a core group of congressional leaders, government officials, and some senior Biden funders who were withholding huge amounts of committed contributions. Basically, pressure on the donors. Obviously, they have a ton of influence, which is disgusting, but it's just the sad truth of our political system. People who donate millions of dollars, they're some of the most powerful people in politics, even though they've never been elected. People don't even know who they are. But by Saturday, July 20th, former President Barack Obama, aka the kingpin of the Democratic Party behind the scenes, was deeply involved, and there was talk that he would place a call to Biden. It was not clear whether Biden had been examined or just what happened to him in Las Vegas. The big three, the officials said, referring to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Charles Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries, continued to be directly involved. On Sunday morning, the official told me, with the approval of Pelosi and Schumer, Obama called Biden after breakfast and said, "Here's the deal. We have Kamala's approval to invoke the 25th Amendment." This is huge. So there's a reason, obviously, the 25th Amendment exists, and it's for cases like this. It's still shady, obviously, that we have in a smoke-filled back room, for a good analogy, the party elites like Hakeem Jeffries, Pelosi, Obama, Chuck Schumer, basically conspiring with Kamala, like, do we invoke the 25th Amendment? Do we not? And instead of this just being a test of fitness, it was basically to force out a stubborn old man who really shouldn't be the nominee and should not be president. But instead of actually putting the country first and saying, no, clearly this guy can't be president, even if there's only a few months left on the table, invoking the 25th Amendment, they decided to leave him in because it, in a way, seems a little bit better politically. There's some people who said that it might be better for her to basically invoke it and then take over and basically be an incumbent president, because if you know anything about politics, it's way harder for someone to beat an incumbent, a person who's like directly coming out of the position of presidency and who is running again, than for someone to beat a brand new candidate. As of right
Isn't it
now,
like 60 or 70% of the time, something like
yep,
that?
yep. And so even though she's vice president, she's not president. Therefore, she's not technically an incumbent. Whereas if she were to, like, if Biden stepped down right now from the presidency and she became president, it instantly would boost her poll numbers just because of incumbency. It's kind of ridiculous that like voters are so easily swayed that way, where it's just like, oh, she was already president. I mean, like, might as well just keep her in there, right? But you would think that that would be their ploy. What I think their calculation was, and why they're not 25th Amendmenting him, is that it would look very bad on their part to actually have to invoke the 25th Amendment, considering they, when all of these lawmakers, mostly on the Republican side, because obviously a lot of the good little boys and girls over in the Democratic Party aren't going to cross their leadership and tell the truth and say, like, hey, yeah, maybe we should 25th Amendment this guy. But of course, so you have the opposite side, the Republicans, saying, clearly dude should be a candidate for the 25th Amendment. And what were they saying? They were saying that you were just ageist and conspiracy theorists and cheap fakes was the thing, where you're selectively editing videos of Biden basically face planting verbally and potentially even physically. And no, they're technically not fake videos, but somehow they're out of context. Somehow it makes sense in another context. They were just gaslighting everyone so much to, say that basically that even talk about the 25th Amendment is just ridiculous. How dare these Republicans even bring up the 25th Amendment? How rude, how basically conspiracy theorist do you have to be? And then, per this reporting, here we have, behind the scenes, them talking about, not as a genuine concern for the country, but as a pure political move in case Biden was too senile and stubborn to leave on his own volition, basically conspiring to, all right, we actually have a way to force this guy out under, the Constitution. It's just so politically cynical that it's disgusting. We knew Biden needs to get out of the way, but I'm starting to subscribe to the theory. A couple people have said it, but most notably Jimmy Dore, is that they kind of planned for this all along. It's not like they didn't know that Biden had a large chance of not even making it alive to the next election. Never mind, his cognitive decline. And so what Jimmy said is that there's a good chance that they knew that they were going to force this guy out.
Fucking microwave off, jackass. Oh my god. Sorry, Jared.
But basically they knew that there was a good chance that they were going to force this guy out or convince him to step down on his own accord. But if they had said that from the beginning, which they kind of did with the whole I'm going to be a transitional president, but I think their political calculus shifted into basically, well, if we do that, there's going to be all these different contenders. No one fucking likes Kamala, so our choice, Kamala Harris, because she's like in bed with, all the shittiest actors in the government, is easily going to be beaten because no one fucking likes her. So how can we basically guarantee that our choice, being Wall Street and the military industrial complex, is basically guaranteed a spot? Well, if she's VP and we basically just have him step down, it almost guarantees her the spot because we can make the case of, well, we're at the last second in terms of the election. We need to go with our strongest candidate, and so of course they're saying, strong independent black woman. She, you can't replace her, and they knew that that was her best chance of being able to run for president because they knew who was going to run against them. People like, God forbid, Gavin Newsom, other, Democratic Party up and coming people, RFK, who would have easily destroyed every other person in that race, and they couldn't have that. So I think it was almost a calculated plot. I don't have evidence of this, but I wouldn't doubt it if they were like, you know what, best way for us to ensure Kamala is the nominee is to just act like we're gonna run Joe Biden again, and then show the world that clearly his brains are leaking out of his ears, and then we'll just have him step down from running, and basically the de facto new nominee is going to be Kamala because we've already gotten past the primary process, and now there's no real way for like a RFK or other candidate to be the nominee. It's already all Biden delegates at the Democratic convention, so all they have to do is switch over to Kamala, which she already got. Less than 24 hours after Biden stepped down, she announced, I've secured all of the delegates in my favor. Therefore, I'm the nominee. Which, if you think about it, is so hypocritical, like we were alluding to earlier, considering they're, quote unquote, the party of democracy. And yet, again, when we have another chance for the Democratic voters to actually have a say in who their nominee is, they go, nope, we've just convinced the delegates to switch to us. I'm now the nominee. Fuck you. If you have anything else to say about it, you get no choice in the matter. I'm curious, what do you think of that kind of theory, that this was kind of all maybe not planned to a T, but that this was the general idea to like fake that you're going to run Biden again and then just basically force him out or have him step down and Kamala will be the de facto?
I feel like it's plan like not even plan D. Like it's like their 8th or 9th option. Like I
You
definitely
think?
feel like Newsom was plan C or something like that. And then they kind of finally realized like, oh shit, California doesn't even want him.
Yeah.
But I mean, then
Yeah.
again, we didn't want Kamala either, but they're running her. So I I don't know, dude.
Yeah, and we won't pretend to know like what the internal, because everyone's got their own like agenda too. So I'm sure like different people had their different plan A, B, C, and D, and I'm sure Kamala was putting her thumb on the scale of like, nah, you're not gonna pass me up. I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that like I play this chessboard to where you guys are stuck with me.
I
And
want I also feel like some organic backers also came into play because like I feel like that's the only thing that could have really pushed her ahead of the other people that they were looking at, because I feel like they were also looking at a lot of people like Rokana was one person they were looking at, which you know how I feel about Rokana or Rokan, whatever the hell his name is, but
Rokana, yeah. Fake
anyway, they were
fake
looking at,
progressive piece of shit.
yeah, you know, he's that's a whole other story. You can make a whole other episode on that, but um no, I think they were wanting to look at someone that was more like younger, that they could be more malleable, I guess.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what they're wanting to go. But I don't remember where I read it. I'll need to try to find the article again. But it was saying something about Kamala got this new PAC backing and yada yada yada, which I'll have to look into it and I'll send you the article once I find it. But I feel like that's the only thing that really could have pushed Kamala ahead of these people, because it seems like they were like super dead set about blocking that from happening, which thank God. But I mean, clearly they had to change their heart for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's why I think it could have been a lot of like a Game of Thrones on the inside where they were trying their hardest. You're probably right to not have her because they probably understand that she's like politically the weakest one of their
Mm.
candidates, even if she would be like, if she were to win, it's not like they would dislike her clearly because she would do everything that they wanted. It's just more of a, I'm sure you're right, they had more of a calculation of like, sure, it'd be fine if you won. You would do all of our wars, give us all of our like loopholes and the tax code, whatever we want. But the problem is you can't win because you're historically, hated, just like Hillary. We can't have another Hillary situation. So I bet you're right that they were like trying everything to like, you know, all right, how are we going to get Biden out? He already said he's going to be a transitional candidate. But then instead of people defaulting to, oh, well, then, Kamala's the clear choice. How do we like insert, you're right, like Newsom or God forbid, who, yeah, Ro Khanna or someone who they would think would, I don't know, give a new face to the Democratic Party, but still obviously be, yeah, malleable and corrupt to the bone that could actually really win. Someone who, like Ro Khanna, would be perfect for them because he gives this like fake air of progressivism and, like fake calls out corruption and then just engages in the corruption behind the scenes for most people, because most people don't look past just the rhetoric. They don't look at the actual voting record. They just look at the rhetoric and go, oh, well, obviously, dude's against war. And then you look at his voting record and it's like, oh, but he voted to send money to Ukraine.
I
And
mean, especially if it's coming from their own party as well. Like if it's a Republican hearing something coming from the Republican Party, they're going to believe it, and vice versa.
yep,
Like
it's team sports instead of
yeah,
like people being informed and not picking sides like it's a team and just believing it by default, which is what everyone should do. Neither of these two parties are looking out for you. They're cynical
no,
actors. They just do opposite rhetoric, almost like the WWE. It really is just fucking kabuki theater. They fake fight each other on most things, you know, sure, there's some ideological differences on the margins, but on the big stuff, which is like, how can we get into another war and funnel more money into the military's hands, or like the Boeings and the Raytheons of the world, you know, how can we basically give another loophole to all of our shared donor? Because it's so funny to track a lot of high level donations. Sure, certain companies might favor one political party over the other, but in general, when you track these donations, it basically goes almost equally to both party. It's kind of
it's
funny
just
because it's like,
whoever specifically is going to do their bidding.
exactly, it's like, well, I donated to both of them, so no matter who gets in power, they're both going to be friendly to me. It really is like an investment for them. They see it as like a business investment, which is
Mm.
complete meddling within our politics and should be illegal. But that's, yeah, like a whole nother conversation about how money in politics corrupts and how we're Jimmy has a funny way of saying it where it's like most people in this country think that we're just regular corrupt, where it's just a few low level things in this country. Yeah, there's like no country is completely free of corruption, but like we're mostly good. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Nothing
To the bone.
happens in this country without the wheels of government being greased with corruption. And it's true. It's literally like the only time anything ever happens good for the
Just on
people
work.
is when it also benefits the corporations. So you have to just hope that what you want also is what the corporations want, and then you'll maybe have a chance of getting that done through government. But God forbid you want something that goes against the wishes of like the giant donors and corporations, you're not getting it because the Democrats and the Republicans could give two fucks about their constituents. They rely on them for a vote and they'll tell them what they want to hear, and then as soon as they get into power, it's immediately like complete head turn. All right, Raytheon, all right, Google, what did you want? You wanted that like new bill passed that exempts you from certain regulation? boom, done. You know, you have my vote. How did I get here? I kind of went on
You're
a
talking about the
tangent.
donors, like all these different people, and like they just go into whoever's gonna do their bidding at least. Or are you talking about before that?
Just in general from this Hersh article. I mean, it all kind of ties in. It's like a complete indictment on our entire political system.
Oh,
How this
okay.
whole
So from
thing.
where I segued it and went on a tangent was a Seymour Hersh article. Prior to that was shit. I forgot what you said, but it reminded me of the Seymour Hersh article. Then I started talking about the funding, and then how Kamala was being a hypocrite with all.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, crap, I don't remember what you said.
Neither do I. But this kind of ties in. The official who Seymour Hersh was talking to, who was basically saying that yeah, it was behind the scenes. It was the strongest power brokers in the Democratic Party. You know, Chuck Schumer, Pelosi, Obama, and Hakeem Jeffries, all conspiring on how the fuck do we get this guy out of here, since he's now obviously like in such a state of decline that now he's. I feel like Biden in the beginning was like, oh yeah, like I'll just run once, don't worry, and like I'll step down. And now because he's like so cognitively declined, one of the symptoms is like stubbornness and just being an ornery old fuck. It's I bet because of it he's like, no, I am gonna run again. I'm the only person who can win. I'm confident he actually believes that. So I'm sure they're like, fuck, all right, let's go to plan B and C on how to get this guy out of here. If we need to 25th Amendment him, we will. But it's these power brokers and the official who has decades of experience in fundraising told me, meaning Seymour Hersh, that Obama emerged as the strongman throughout the negotiations. He had an agenda and he wanted to see it through to the end, and he wanted to have control over who would be elected. It's exactly what people have been saying for years at this point, that there's this shadowy figure in the Democratic Party who really is with Pelosi and some of the other people, but the main dude is Obama. He really had like a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party back in '08,
Mhm.
and he's got a ton of influence in the party and really is a power broker in the shadows of the Democratic Party. And you know, it was kind of glib in the beginning of like, oh, you know, who's running the show behind the scenes? Is it Obama? In terms of like Biden and what was being done with the country. And I don't think literally Obama has been like the acting president. I think that's probably been Kamala, a lot of the like aides that are around Biden, you know, whether it be the generals who are like, hey, we think we should do this. I basically think it's all of the advisors around him who have effectively been making a lot of the decisions. I wouldn't doubt it if Obama had, you know, influence on a lot of that, if it was a thing that concerned him. But in terms of putting his thumb on the scale and basically guaranteeing that there's not going to be fair democracy within the Democratic Party. Obama's been there since he left office. I mean, fuck, back in 2016, you know, when Bernie Sanders was running, he helped to put his thumb on the scale for Hillary. And then when Bernie ran again in 2020, there was that whole out in the open influence that he did basically on Super Tuesday, where he said, all right, Buttigieg, whatever the fuck her name was, Klobuchar, uh, and whoever else was in the race, resign from running and endorse Biden. You know, Obama probably promised them a lot of things behind the scenes, and that was to consolidate the vote since it looked like Bernie was going to win the nomination. And then he called Elizabeth Warren, who drew a lot of votes away from Bernie because they both were kind of seen as the more progressive left, and told her, do not drop out, stay in. And this was reported on too, and barely eked out the margin for Joe Biden. That's why we got Joe Biden in the first place, was because Obama was like, fuck, we can't have Bernie. You know, even though he's totally a party insider, he might barely, you know, give some rhetoric about how we should, I don't know, give healthcare to people or something. And so Obama's been this like shadowy figure within the Democratic Party, talking about how we need to preserve democracy, and Trump is this unique threat to democracy. And, you know, if he gets elected again, say goodbye to your country, democracy will be over. And then behind the scenes, not super carefully, this guy has been putting his thumb on the scale, not ensuring a fair democracy the entire time. It's, again, goes right back to what you said. It's the just out in the open hypocrisy that this party is so guilty of nowadays. And I think that's woken up a lot of people to like just stop. It used to work a lot more on people of this moral high ground of, you know, we're the party of righteousness, and, you know, the Republicans are just the party of evil, and, you know, they just want to help corporations. But this party has been so hollowed out and has been reduced to just pure virtue signaling, and that's literally it. And people are sick of it. And this just shows the shitty backroom deals, you know, playing with an old man's senility and threatening to invoke the 25th Amendment. So that's basically what it was. It was just a bombshell. You know, it was putting article and facts to something we all already knew, which is the dude is senile. He should be 25th Amendmented. But the only reason we had even the discussion behind the scenes of it is for cynical political reasons, because Kamala was worried that she wouldn't be able to be the nominee. And that's what she's been banking on since she became vice president with Joe Biden, is that he was going to do one term and then she was going to take the mantle the second term. And as soon as he was like threatening, you know, no, I'm going to run again, because I'm sure he actually believed it, they were like, all right, he's not listening to reason, you know, all of the carrots. What's the stick? And it's a massive stick. It's the 25th fucking amendment, dude. But I think that was their last resort, because that would look so bad for them. It would verify what everyone else has been saying for 4 or 5 years, that the guy is not cognitively there. And it would also just optically look really bad, you know, because it would look like a hostile takeover. So I don't know. It's kind of like the Nord Stream pipeline that Seymour Hersh also reported on, when the U.S. government came out and was like, oh yeah, that pipeline that we wanted gone just magically blew up. We think it was Russia blew up their own pipeline, and like actually said that and thought people would believe it. And then everyone was like, go ahead.
It's hilarious how stupid they think we are.
Yes. It's an insult to our intelligence, how gullible and dumb. And like I was saying before you hopped on, sure, there are a lot of people who are very gullible and dumb. And they really think that the U.S. government is just this benevolent actor in the world, and like everything is done with sunshine and rainbows, and it's all like good intentions, when in reality it's just complete cynical actors who are looking out for not even the country's best interest at this point, just
their party and
their
themselves.
own. Exactly. So that's really what it was. And it was just funny how we were all saying like, oh yeah, Joe Biden's literally on record saying like, we'll make sure that the Nord Stream disappears, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. Then magically, like a month or two later, it blows up. And then everyone's like, "Oh wow, that seems like a crazy coincidence, doesn't it?" And they're really like, "Oh no, it totally wasn't us. We think Russia blew up one of their biggest sources of income just voluntarily." And yeah, like you said, it's just like they think that you are so stupid. And then Seymour Hersh just basically gave the like credibility, even though everyone already knew it. They still could be like, "Ah, just a conspiracy theory. You have no evidence." And then thankfully we have journalists like Seymour Hersh who just give that like credibility to these stories for you to be like, "Ah, no, it's not just a conspiracy theory. I am vindicated. Here's an article from one of the most decorated journalists of our entire time detailing exactly like all of the evidence that we have of it, all of these leaked documents." And that's kind of exactly what happened here, where it's like, "Oh, clearly this was Biden got forced out. You know, they were threatening him with potentially the 25th Amendment, and they were just like, oh no, he just decided to leave of his own volition," even though we all knew that it was like a hostile takeover from the inside. And this is just the vindication that, dude had some health scare, and they said, "All right, this is fucking enough. We're threatening you with exposing all of the like evidence we have on you of, I'm sure they have mountains of documents showing how, and video and everything else showing how like cognitively not there he is." So I'm sure they came to him and they're like, "Do you want all of this to be out there and then we 25th Amendment you? Or would you rather step aside gracefully and keep your legacy intact?"
I don't even think it's that. I
Legacy.
think it's, like, real dirt on him.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm
Like,
sure. But
there's a
I'm sure
lot
that
of
was like the option after 25th
yeah,
Amendment. If he really decided to like
fight
somehow
it.
fight the 25th Amendment, I'm sure they're like, "All right, dude. Not only are we gonna 25th Amendment you, but boom, Epstein Island or some crazy shit."
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know, all these like girls that you like to sniff their hair. All these like. I'm sure there's plenty of that. So I'm sure, like you were kind of alluding to, like there's plenty of options A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Like they have plenty of dirt on this dude. So it's just funny. It's funny that we're at this period in politics where it's like we can all see it right in front of our eyes, and the gaslighting isn't working anymore. But it still doesn't really matter because we're still left with these two choices, and you know doesn't really seem like much is going to change. They're just going to do what they're going to do, and America is just going to continue to be the laughing stock of the world and lose a lot of our international power, and our dollars crumbling, and just we got cackling, corrupt prosecutor